It's a pleasure today to join you at Samia. Thank you very much for inviting me to give an input in this ongoing discussion on your strategic plan. And on behalf of the AFREA board, we are very glad that you're moving that way. So you did ask me to give an idea about where are we going, where is the future for M&E, and I'm glad to just give my personal thoughts, but of course, having listened to the global conversation. So I would first say thank you so much for taking time to prepare a strategic plan, because we have very many institutions which are operating without even thinking what the next step is. And therefore, it is important. What you are doing is an important milestone in Africa. But I want to say we are fast moving into an era where a 3-year plan horizon may be considered short term. And because the complexity of issues we have to deal with are no longer short term, we have disruption, we have many things happening in the world that require long-term planning. Even if we don't know what the future holds, it doesn't matter. But at least you have a general direction of where you want to go. And why I say so is because the global resources for doing M&E are reducing. And because they are reducing, we should be able to kind of be strategic and look for the priority areas we want to work in and identify partners who can identify with the areas we think are priority, and maybe work out a long-term financing plan. Instead of jumping from one donor to another, it would make sense to start thinking about working from a long-term perspective. And then people would have trust when they know that we have a long-term view of what we want to do. Now, I would say when we're looking into the future, we also reflect on where we have come from. AFREA has been giving guidance on what we should look at. And I believe that the vision we have from AFREA for M&E in Africa remains relevant now and even in the foreseeable future. Our vision, which says an Africa rooted in a culture of evaluation for equitable and sustainable development. That's what we need to look at. And but then we know that there are things that have changed, things that we must care about, especially when we are Africa. For instance, COVID-19 has brought a lot of disruption, and we can't say now things are the same, that the methods we are going to use to measure development or anything that we want to look at will be the same. We have several aspects of crisis coming to our countries, things to do with poverty, hunger, vulnerability, unemployment, poor governance. They have always been there. But now, because of the COVID, the environmental challenges, they are becoming aggravated, and you find this inequality. So many people are asking us then, what is the value of what we are doing as evaluators? We have been around, we have been measuring development, but look at where we are. We are not doing any better. So we too have to go back and ask this question: what is our value proposition as evaluators? Are we just there to give findings and results and then we walk away? Or have we reached a stage where we think we have to think about partnerships, collaboration, and even rethink the issue of independence? When we are doing evaluation and monitoring, our point of springing is that we will do we'll be independent evaluators, but then independent from who? The people we want to be independent from no longer need us so much. They're saying we have a crisis, why should I even bother to monitor? The money is too little that I've injected in the development process, in the policy process, and therefore, why should I even bother to monitor it? Because it's just enough to keep systems running. Therefore, you are not necessary. So the question is, how do we increase our relevance as monitoring and evaluation practitioners in a world where we may not even be desired? And how do we make ourselves kind of partners who can give feedback quickly instead of doing very long-term research that takes too a long time? Possibly it could be that the answers lie in using digital technologies, moving away from just saying, I'm doing this monitoring and evaluation for a full year. I'll give you the answer later. What are these new technologies that we have to harness to work with? And if we do, in Africa, we know communication is not easy, even ICT is not universal. So if it is not universal, what is it? How are we going to work with the communities in areas where you do find that there is no even internet, it's remote, nobody is listening to you. So these are some of the challenges that we have to think about as we move into the future. The other aspect is that programming has changed even in country systems. As you know, when you are Adam and Eve and all you are an association, you want to work to have your work used somewhere to improve something. That's our purpose. We are not there just to shape methodologies and pat ourselves on the back and say, we have this beautiful methodology. We want to use it for the purpose of improving development. But the development we are talking about is changing face. For instance, we have all along been even going to an Africa conference, and maybe we do a paper on agriculture, another one on health, another one on education, but that's not how governments are working. They are now in program-based approaches. They are looking at systems. Nevertheless, even when they don't know how it's going to be measured, they are already there. They are working in systems, they are working in programs. For instance, I usually engage with the agro-industrialization. So it will stretch from the agriculture to bring in the financing, it will bring in the industry, it will bring in so many other aspects. Now the question is, how do you measure this wide range of disciplines? So possibly we might start also reviewing, when we are having associations like SAMIA, who should be in the association? Is it only people who have credentials of M&E? Maybe not, because possibly if you are going to measure, for instance, if I measure what I just described, I find that within the agro-industry sector, there's infrastructure. And so usually I call an engineer in our Ministry of Finance where I work, and we say the engineer should measure certain parts of the development that I can measure. So it means the people we need in our associations, we have to review who should be in the association. And then that will guide the kind of capacity we should develop as we move along. So there are many things that we have to continue thinking about. Our curriculum, what have we been teaching, and what do we need to teach for the future? If environment is now something, environmental crisis is an issue, have we given sufficient attention within the curriculum of monitoring and evaluation to make sure people understand how do you measure climate? Even myself, I wouldn't say I know how. So it means we have to think about the things governments are grappling with, and then we try to help them. Lastly, I would like to talk about the issue of private sector engagement. If you look at most of our declarations, we talk about how we want to have M&E government-led and all of that. But then you step back and reflect, where is the development? In many programs which we work with, even in Africa, you find that the private sector plays a key role in development. And yet we are busy only working with the public sector, which actually facilitates, gives an enabling environment. So why are we not going a little bit further and also engaging private sector? Even if they are profit, they have a profit motive in what they do, how can we make them measure it, make it better, produce more, have higher yields, so that using monitoring and evaluation, so that when they have better yields, they have better outcomes in the education sector, everybody will benefit as a public good. So I think it's also time to think about engaging private sector as we go along. So as a FREA, we continue to promote the fact that we should always think about doing more work on Made in Africa and bringing African perspectives in the M&E field. Doing research, doing monitoring, writing, authoring. We have put out the African evaluation principles. Maybe we need to start disseminating, interrogating them in light of the new changes in the political economy of monitoring and evaluation. We need to use them, and you can come back to us and tell us, no, this part is not nice, that part is okay, so that we can also look at them. Otherwise, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure always to engage with you. We have started preparing the next AFREA conference, the 11th AFREA conference. It will take place in a French-speaking country, which we shall inform you about, but that should be in 2024 March. Thank you very much, and I wish you the best in the planning process.